director of Yonsei University's Center for Global Sustainability. So I'll be your moderator today. So today's event is part of our leadership workshop series in collaboration with the Global Engagement and Empowerment Forum for Sustainable Development, also known as GEEF for All. The GEEF for All Special Seminar Forum series brings together expertise and leaders from diverse fields to share insights on creating a more sustainable and inclusive future. Dr. Ioannidis is a perfect guest for this mission. His career reminds us that true leadership means standing by evidence, seeking truth, and challenging the status quo. So, to introduce Dr. John Ioannidis, first of all, he is a professor at Stanford University with appointments in medicine, epidemiology, population health, statistics, and biomedical data science. He directs the Stanford Prevention Research Center and co-directs the Meta Research Innovation Center at Stanford. One of the most exciting scientists in the world, his landmark 2005 paper, Why Most Published Research Findings Are False, has had over 3 million views and been cited over 14,255 times. Do you understand what this means? Maybe not. So this is very significant. So his influence in evidence-based medicine and scientific reform has reshaped how we think about research quality and integrity. He is a member of several prestigious academies and served as immediate past president of the Association of American Physicians. Also, today's event was made possible through the efforts of Professor Jae Shin, who helped bring together the Leadership Lecture Series and GEEF for All. We also thank Professor Shingi An, Chairman of the Institute for Global Engagement in Empowerment and Director of Medical Education at Yonsei. To officially open our lecture, please join me in welcoming Dr. John Ioannidis, who will give a speech, a short talk about research leadership. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause.
Hello, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here today to share some thoughts. So I was told to give an introductory lecture, which I don't want that to be a lecture. So please try to see what I will try to put together, but do ask me questions. Do show me that I know next to nothing, because that's exactly what is the case. Leadership. I don't know what leadership is. I think that it's a concept that has evolved over time. In the past, the leader was probably the warrior who would be at the front line and be the best fighter, the most powerful, the most brave, and perhaps the first to die because he was probably too adventurous. Then it was the king. And gradually that got transformed from a warrior king to a bureaucrat king, a king that was inapproachable. You had to pass many officers, many officials, many ministers to reach that person. Nowadays, you need to pass through lots of secretaries and administrators and sub-leadership strata in order to reach that person. Then you have leaders in different things. You have leaders in research, you have leaders in education, you have leaders when it comes to medicine, for example, in healthcare, in public health, in policy, and many of us who are in the academic world are trying to do too many things. And perhaps in my case, I realize that I do a lot of things not that well. So I'm always under pressure to try to say, what do I want to do? And what would I like to convince other people to do? And my first response to that is, what am I really enthusiastic about? And what are other people around me enthusiastic about? What do they want to do with their lives, with their time? many of the things that we do as professors, if you talk to someone in the street and you say that, I woke up at 1 o'clock after midnight because I had that idea and I went to the lab, or I was working with numbers and equations, I say, that guy probably needs to go to psychiatric facility. So you have to have enthusiasm to do that, and you need to convince yourself that this is the best investment of your time and of your effort, and also the best thing that you can contribute to your surrounding, to other people who work with you, who interact with you, who maybe sometimes say that you're leading them, especially if you're in a position of some power. What I do believe, and I have that in my website, is that I know next to nothing. I think one of my hosts, maybe it was Professor Shin, asked me, what is your role model? And I said, role model? What is that? I try to tell people, do what you want. Don't have a role model. Just do what makes you enthusiastic and what you think would be your contribution to the rest of the world, to society, to get this world to be a better place. Now, my role model, I do admire lots of people, some alive, some dead. I think I was fortunate to train with some amazing scientists and educators. But going back many, many centuries, if I were to pick one role model, that would be Socrates. So Socrates, a philosopher, well known for multiple things. One is that he wrote nothing himself. He didn't publish. Plato, his discipline, published dialogues with him as a hero, but he had no time for that. I'm a complete waste. I published hundreds, thousands of different things, probably just polluting the literature right and left. So I didn't follow my role model in that regard. Second, his belief and what he was saying is that there's one thing that I know nothing. That I know nothing. My variant is that I know next to nothing. And I like to be reminded that I know next to nothing. I'm not good enough yet to say that I know nothing. I think probably if I become good enough, I will be able to say Socrates was perfectly correct. We just know nothing. I think we know some. Science is making great progress. Research is amazing. We discover things. Some of them translate into things that change the world, change health, change the way that we can live our lives, better lives, longer lives. So I hate to say that we know absolutely nothing. But as a person, as an individual, and as a leader, I try to remind myself, and I love to be reminded, that we know next to nothing and we need to learn more. We need to try to learn more. We need to try to improve our knowledge, not just for curiosity, but also, since I have that hat in medicine and public health, also to help other people. I think that could really make a difference. And that is something that you have to inspire people to believe, that it is really something worthwhile to help others eventually. So there's a curiosity component, which is fascinating, and then there's a component of helping others, which can be even more fascinating. And it doesn't have to be medicine. I know that you're interested in all types of disciplines. Whatever you do can have a positive impact on people around you, on your immediate environment, or sometimes in people who are very far away. And it would be a blessing, whatever you do, whatever you have contributed, very locally, with commitment, with interest, with enthusiasm. So I think that a leader should probably try to cultivate that enthusiasm among people who are around that person. There's always a temptation to feel that, oh goodness, now I'm a leader, I have become powerful, I have so much administrative ability. That is really false power. And I think it's very unfortunate that it's very easy to slip into that misunderstanding. I think that it's the worst thing that can happen if we forget what we started from and with and for, and stand for that continuously. Remember that it's always best to be in the front line, to be there to fight in the front line, rather than stay behind closed doors, multiple closed doors, and be inapproachable. And I get the maximum excitement when I feel like a first-year student. Like, goodness, there's something that I don't know that I heard about, that maybe one of my students or one of my colleagues came and told me about, and I need to know more about it. Let's talk about it. Let's brainstorm. Let's see what you know, what we can find out, what has been done, what has not been done. Goodness, there's a big vacuum here. We know nothing, or we know next to nothing. Let's try to find out a little bit more. So I have to say I'm very spoiled. I love to have fun. I cannot live without having fun every day. I need to do things that I enjoy, and I hope that I can tell other people around me that they should also have fun with what they do. Now, fun does not mean that we do things perfectly. I believe that I'm a champion of making mistakes. That's what a scientist is a person who makes mistakes. You know, if you're a good scientist, you make a lot of mistakes. Hopefully you recognize some of them, and you correct them iteratively, and you try to improve your record. But, you know, perfection is not something that is anywhere near. So I do enjoy starting things that I can have a hands-on experience. I can test them myself. I can see how they work or how they do not work. I lament the time that maybe one day I will just sit back and not want to check myself some data set, not want to test myself some hypothesis, not want to collect myself some literature or some information, no matter what other people around me might do. Now, is that a good leadership example? I don't know. It may be a horrible leadership example. I think that in our times, when you need to have sometimes leaders who work on very complex organizations with hundreds and thousands, sometimes even millions of people, perhaps you need people who are less mavericks than I am, who are kind of more composed than I am, who are less adventurous, who will not go fight in the front line and die, like that all-warrior person who was adventurous and killed 5 or 6 enemies, but died in the 7th duel. Goodness, that's my example and how I try to do things. Maybe a horrible one, but I'd love to discuss with you and hear thoughts about what you think leaders should be and how you see yourselves becoming leaders in whatever you believe is important to lead and contribute and be a positive force eventually in the world. Thank you so much.
So now it's time for Q&A session as he recommended. So where all students are welcome to raise your hand and ask any questions you might have. So to lead our discussion, I'd like to invite another speaker or guest, Professor Jae Shin, to the stage. Let's welcome him with a big round of applause. So Professor Shin is a faculty member at the Yonsei University College of Medicine and a medical doctor specializing in the division of pediatric nephrology. He currently serves as the director of the Severance Underwood Meta Research Center. So now let's open our discussion or question.
Today is a very meaningful time because I found the field of meta research 10 years ago. The title was she introduced why the most published research findings are false. So it's very difficult to find that area. So it's very extraordinary thinking. So I was very interested. You just said that have the fun, like anything you like to do. But it's very difficult, and I'm very wonder. So how you brainstorm so many research topics and yeah, write that kind of paper? Very wonder. Could you explain more on that paper?
So I think that it's an iterative process. And I try to learn from people who know more, from people who are knowledgeable in different fields, who have tried to work in particular areas that perhaps I'm less familiar with, and brainstorm with them. So I'm very open to talking with other scientists, with other scholars. It's pretty much a large number of people who I interact with. I think that I have published scientific papers with close to 10,000 different people, and probably I have interacted with a much larger number than that. And it's always fascinating to hear something new, something that complements what you have seen in some other application, in some other field, or some extension, or something that perhaps can be transplanted to another domain. Now, meta-research is research on research. So it is about testing our research practices, how we do research, how we design research, how we analyze data, how we use or misuse methods, how we disseminate information, how we evaluate what was done, how we appraise scientists, bodies of work, institutions, what kind of incentives we might give, how do we work with our peer review systems. So it's a whole universe. It's pretty much dissecting the scientific method. And different fields of science, different disciplines are all using the scientific method, but they're using it with their own peculiarities, with their own priorities, with their own emphasis. That I care a lot about replication, for example. No, in our field, we never do replication. Oh, in my field, we do a little bit of that. Our peer review system is working this way. Oh, our peer review system is not working that way. We have a different standard. We use frequentist statistics. No, we use Bayesian statistics. We evaluate research proposals with a 5% acceptance rate. Oh no, we just get everyone a little bit of money, and we have 80% acceptance rates. We register our protocols. We think very carefully ahead of time, what are we going to do? And we put it in writing and vet it very carefully, and then we post it, and then we have to follow it very faithfully. No, we don't do that. We just explore. We go in the jungle and we get lost. And hopefully we can tell you how we got lost. That's all we can say. And hopefully get out of the jungle one day. So different scientists work in very different ways. And it's exciting to find out how they work and how that functions or how that malfunctions. So lots of people come to me because they think that I will help them, but I think they help me in a way. So it's that's also part of the fun that I mentioned, trying to really enjoy all of these interactions as learning opportunities, and then also be able to connect the dots and get scientists from different walks of life to communicate, to collaborate, to exchange their perspectives, their work approaches, their practices, and see how they can mutually enhance their work.
Okay, let me ask a question. I think our students might have very similar question to you. So you're a global leader in your field, right? Evidence-based research, meta-research. So how did you get into this field? That's my first question. And the second question is that if you have any tips for our students who wants to become world leaders in their own fields, respective fields, do you have any tips? They are undergrad students. Where can they start?
That's a very nice question. So I think it was trial and error. And I encourage you to try things out and see how they work for you or how they fail. Failure sometimes is the best way to success. And I'm very happy for my thousands of failures. I can start talking about my failures. I can go on for years. You'll have to go and do your work. But that's, I think, how one learns. Successes are great, getting awards, getting funding, getting promoted, getting tenure, being elected in academies, but really failures are really the best lesson. So I started with enthusiasm. I wanted to do research. I wanted to do different types of research, so I tried my hands. My initial love was mathematics. I loved mathematics, but I also wanted to do medical research, clinical research, and I also wanted to try field work in epidemiology and population health. And I also wanted to work in labs, so I tried my hands in wet labs. At some point early in my career, I was working in a BL3 facility with handling viruses for which there was no treatment, including HIV, before the time that we got effective treatments. So that was lots of fun, very interesting, stimulating. The common denominator in whatever I was trying to do, my realization was that, goodness, this is very hard. It's so easy to make mistakes. It's so easy not to do it properly. It's so easy to have laboratory error, clinical measurement error, field study error, bias of all sorts. Even mathematics was not kind of error proof. It was very easy to make mistakes in mathematics. In one of my early papers, I was working day and night on a model, a mathematical model, and I finished this and I run it through my computer, pretty old type of computer, and I get a result showing that if you are infected with HIV and you have advanced disease and you're very sick and you have a very high level of viral load, my mathematical model predicts that you will live for 800 years. So that was wonderful. Obviously, I had not found a solution for people to live for 800 years. That was an error. So I could go back and check my equations, and I found that a plus sign had become minus in one equation, and instead of 0.8 years, which was the right answer, it had become 800 years. Once you corrected that, you were back to 0.8 years. So error in that case was very visible, and this is wonderful when error is very visible, because you either have to change your mind completely and say, oh, my model is always correct. These people are going to live for 800 years. It may sound silly. I see that happening all the time with very smart people, perhaps even with me. We get stuck in our belief, and even though it just strikes on a wall, it's clearly wrong, we just don't admit it. We don't want to admit it. But hopefully, if you see life expectancy of 800 years, you're likely to say, this cannot be so, and find out about the error. In other cases, it's more difficult to find about error and bias and mistakes, but the common denominator in all my early experiences trying to do research, with very good mentors, with people who knew, with people who were doing their best, with people who did devote time to train me and teach me and tell me, this is how things should be done, was that it was very easy for mistake, error, bias to creep in. And that's the common denominator of what captured my attention. It became the driving force of what I wanted to do, be able to prevent these mistakes, be able to reduce their presence, be able to correct them if they cannot be prevented, be able to adjust and account for them, be able to get something that is more rigorous. And as I was moving in that direction, I realized that there's lots of commonalities, regardless of what exactly you do. There's some mistakes that happen again and again. There's also some principles that you can minimize mistakes that can apply in different fields.
Were there any moments that you felt, oh, I want to give up, I just don't want to do this anymore? Were there any moments?
There's good and bad moments. And as I said, in my experience, even though my CV does not look like it, I think that failures were more than successes. And talking with amazing scientists, I've talked with many people who are Nobel laureates, very good friends. They share the same experience. Failure is more common than success, and of course, it may be dispiriting at times. You may get a feeling that, goodness, why this doesn't work? I have invested so much, I have tried so much. I'm not a bad person. I work so long hours, and this doesn't work. This is okay. When you look at it downstream, it may be 1 year later, it may be 2 years later, maybe 5 years later, you realize that that was just part of what was interesting about life and work and your overall experience, and you have become a richer person through that. It's not that I wish you to be unsuccessful, I wish you to be fully successful. But don't think of success as something that is linear, that is just an expectation of target accomplished, mission accomplished, we move to the next one and everything is going to be fine because we work hard and we invest our best effort. Yes, please do that, and please do that with enthusiasm. But be prepared for all outcomes. And sometimes the seemingly bad outcomes may be one way that you may be led into some better evolution of your career and your thinking and what might be best for you. Sometimes a door needs to close. I think that this has happened many times in my life that I thought that would be the way to go. I have a lot of planning in my life. I work a bit like Soviet 5-year plans. I need to do this and this and this and that. They're never accomplished in their entirety. There's always deviations. And some of these deviations are really the best thing that can happen to you. That thankfully, I recognize that was a dead end. And that was not getting anywhere. And I need to move out, cut my losses short, and move into something that is more fruitful. One has to be open to meet failure and challenges and to readapt.
Thank you. I can totally resonate with you.
Nevertheless, so it's very difficult to find the things I wanted to do. Yeah, that's very difficult. So for me, I practice in clinical practice and treat the children. But regarding research, I have done just the field I are doing, but reading many papers, I found the field of meta research. So I was somewhat lucky to pursue the path of the meta research. But many of the students, even for me, when I was very young, I didn't know what really I wanted to do. Explore and many things. But I think some ideas might be derived from any other field. For example, exploring, for example, not just my work, but also, as you mentioned, walking. Or I know that you are very expert in art and you composed the libretto or of the opera, and you have written many books, and composed poets. I think that those kind of your great things might influence the creation of meta research like the field. So could you explain more on how we can derive exploring many things are great, but how can we more specifically do?
I think that there is certain level of serendipity in life and in scholarship, in science, in art, in creativity. People need to be exposed to what is something that catches their attention, catches their imagination. You say, I want to work on this, I want to do more. So you need to be exposed to people who are enthusiastic about this. You need to be contaminated and with some contagious enthusiasm from them, which means in your stage, just try to get exposed and try things, trial and error. Try to go to some lab meetings, to some research team meetings, to talk to people, to ask them what do they do, try to read, try to explore ways of expressing yourself through science, scholarship, art. There's no boundaries, and there's really no, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. I would say everything is acceptable if you really have interest to do it. And there's no reason for any excuse if you don't like it. If you go there and you hear, what are these guys doing? I mean, I want to run as far from here as possible. Don't feel obliged that, this is a very kind professor and he's very respected and he's such a nice person and senior, and I have to stay and torture myself. No, if you don't like it, try and do something else. Be kind to other people. Don't insult other people. I admire the Korean ethics. I think you're probably the most kind people in the world. And I'm not good at telling good things to people. I'm good at telling bad things to people. So do take it very seriously. But I think that what matters is to be honest with yourself. Do I like it or I like it not? And try until it clicks. So in my case, I had that interest in mathematics. I had that interest in evidence. But somehow things coalesced, and one day I met the late Tom Chalmers, who was in a very late stage in his career. He died about 5 years later. He already had cancer at that time, but he was very energetic. You know, Tom Chalmers was the first person to perform a clinical trial in the US, the first person to popularize meta-analysis, synthesis of multiple studies to try to get some evidence appraisal. Director of the NIH Clinical Center, president of Mount Sinai. So an amazing personality. And I just met him. You know, I found myself in his path, and he was also working with Joseph Lau at that time, and they had just published 2 very influential papers in the 2 top medical journals, New England Journal of Medicine and JAMA, on meta-analysis and how meta-analysis compares against experts. That experts, you know, senior, wise people were not so wise. You know, they wouldn't catch up with the evidence. And right at that time also, the term evidence-based medicine was being born. It was first used, and right at that time, the Cochrane collaboration, some mavericks like me and others thought that this is the opportunity to change medicine and make it more systematic, more quantitative, more evidence-based, more related to data rather than opinion and expertise and speculation. So it was serendipity, it was chance, it was fortune, it was preconceived, determined. It's hard to know, but that was something that I found very exciting at that time. And I've seen that serendipity many times. I think it's not just chance. I think it's also some sort of preparation, some sort of anticipation, some sort of, for a long while you feel that you're missing something, you're struggling to find something, you're struggling to fill that void, and here comes a possibility that arises. And then you cannot but work on it because it seems so important. So I suspect that for most of you, and I hope that this is the case, I hope it is for all of you, the things that you will find most exciting in your life are not even known yet as we speak today. So they're waiting somewhere in the future. One day you will hit upon them. You know, you will just hit on that wall, and you will be dazzled for a little bit, but then you'll say, yes, I need to go through that wall. And you will go through that wall, believe me. So I'm not saying that everything that you learn now will be obsolete, although a lot of what you learn now will be obsolete. It's fine. It's fine. I go back and look at the textbooks that I was reading when I was at university student. Goodness, very little of that remains. But that was also fun. I mean, and I cherish these moments. All these cumulative failures that eventually lead to something that makes a bit more sense.
All right, so let's see if we have questions from the floor. I'm sure you might have your question in your mind and like hesitating, should I ask or not? But when you hesitate, you have to try. Go for that, as Dr. Ioannidis recommended. Try and error. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor, so much for your time. So, within your lecture beforehand, you spoke about the importance of embracing mistakes and the humility of knowing next to nothing. And I wondered that in today's world, where public trust in science is very often fragile and politicized, how can researchers communicate their mistakes or error without undermining the essence of and the importance of science itself?
That's a wonderful question, and I have no good answer, to be honest. I'm struggling to find an answer, and I'm going through a lot of trial and error, and probably lots of error myself in trying to deal with this. Because indeed, discussions around science are very easy to weaponize nowadays. And we don't want to see that, and we don't want to have science being subservient to ideology or to some other secretive means or perhaps overt means of political kind of gains, or have science, even worse, become a perceived enemy of some parties or partisan positions. So we see a lot of that. We see that there's partisanship introduced into science. We see that science sometimes is uptaken by one political party as, this is my science, and sometimes we see other parties attacking science, and the reason might be that the opposite party might have said, this is my science. Oh, so this is you then, and I'm your opponent party, so I need to destroy science because you say science is you. So it's a very sad situation, and the question is, what do scientists do? I'm not sure that I have the correct answer, but my preference is to try to present science for what it is, in all its strength and weakness, and certainty and uncertainty. Try to convey what we know, what we don't know, what we are uncertain, how much uncertainty we have. Avoid taking stances that depend on the political ideology, although it's likely that some parties in some debates will have a more correct, let's say, position compared to others. I mean, this is very likely, but don't present science as belonging to parties or partisanship or ideology, because it doesn't belong. I think science is open to refute itself, to self-correct, to nullify prior results, while political parties and ideologies typically just defend what they do no matter what. And this is very, very different. And we have evidence that in trying to defend science, if, let's say, nature endorses a particular party, then that means that all the opponents of that particular party will see science as an adversary, which is, I think, not a good thing. There's a very nice paper in Nature Human Behavior in that regard. So I think that very often we try to convey a message that science is very powerful and it knows a lot, and it has made great progress, and it can solve all the problems. It can solve many problems, has made great progress, is very helpful to our life, but we don't know everything. We have uncertainty. So we have to be humble in admitting of this uncertainty. And I believe we should admit our mistakes in public. I don't think it's a good idea to try to show that we're perfect, because we're not perfect. We just try to do our best. So if we convince the average citizen that these people are just trying to do their best, and they're trying to help us, they're not doing it because they just get more money for themselves. They do it because they want to help. And yes, they make mistakes, it's human, but they do their best. And they also do their best, and I trust that they will do their best to correct whatever mistakes might appear. This may be the best recipe, but it is very hard times for science in that regard. And I cannot promise you that even if we do our best, it will work. We'll have to see.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It reminds me, you have ever mentioned that science is the best thing that have happened to human beings, but we can do it better. That kind of right thing.
Yeah, it is a human endeavor. Science may seem to be objective, but it is performed by humans. And even if at some point, even now, it can be performed by AI agents, by artificial intelligence agents, these are still agents that we have created in a sense, and they would have trained with human knowledge and human weaknesses and human biases. So we have to take that as a starting point.
My another question.
Good afternoon, Professor. Thank you for your amazing insight today. I belong to the Global Leadership Division in this university, and I believe like every second thing comes with the perfect global or leadership these days. I wanted to ask, what do you think one skill that we need to actually be a good leader in this globalized era? Just one thing.
One skill to become a good leader?
That I need to possess, that we need to possess in order to be a good leader.
Goodness, I will probably fail that test. Because I think that, both for leadership and for science and scholarship and there's hardly silver bullets, like one thing that, if I do that, then I get most of what I need to have. It's always multifactorial. It's multiple things. It's multiple circumstances, multiple ways to be ready, to be versatile, to react, to be resilient, to meet success and failure, to be contagious to yourself and to your environment. I would probably start by saying enthusiasm. I think it's indispensable. It's a driving force, and unless you can maintain that, it's very difficult for all the rest. All the technical preparation and all the scholarly knowledge and all the computational capacity and all the resources and infrastructure to eventually work for whatever you want that to work. So I would say it's very human enthusiasm. It's a bit more than just human. And enthusiasm is a Greek word. It means to have the divine power, God inside you. So something driving you, and making sure that you can mobilize all of these opportunities or lack of opportunities. I think you have amazing facilities. Yonsei is a wonderful university, but I also admire people who just decide to go and work in circumstances that are not just underprivileged, but extremely disadvantageous, to try to help people who are very poor, who are in the middle of nowhere, who are in places in sub-Saharan Africa or in places in the US that look like sub-Saharan Africa, or worse in terms of how people live and what they expect from their lives. So with enthusiasm, I think you can overcome a lot of obstacles.
Thank you for your time. My question is that just a while ago in your speech, you have said that a leader should know that what we know is that we don't know anything. And a common stereotype that we all have, I believe, is that a leader should be knowledgeable at least in his field, to become a leader. And I would like to ask what's your perception about this contradiction?
So a leader needs to know to become a leader. Yes and no. I would modify that slightly to know what we know and what we do not know at a proper calibration. Because I just feel that there's just too many leaders who think that they know a lot, and they're very self-confident and even authoritarian based on this perception of I'm very knowledgeable, I've reached the top of the pyramid, and I work hard, and all of that is correct. It's not that I'm talking about some some fraud who found his way to the top. Maybe that person has worked a lot. It is a very assertive type of leadership. I do have my concerns about this. I do think that assertion has value in the component of persisting, of not giving up. So you don't give up if you feel that this is a worthy cause, this is a worthy path, and also if you're a leader, if there's other people who you're supporting and you're trying to help and you're trying to create an environment or circumstances that are optimal for them to thrive. So there's persistence in this. There's some sort of belief. There's some sort of not giving up, not surrendering, not be willing to go back just because you met some obstacles. This doesn't mean necessarily, though, that one has to feel that I know everything, this is why I do this. It has more to do with ethical values, with commitment, with non-selfish values primarily, rather than the selfishness of I know everything. It's the non-selfishness of willing to help others. Now, when you get into such circumstances, without losing assertiveness and willingness to fight and defend your people, I think it's a good idea to also ask, why are our enemies or our opponents or our adversaries or our whoever is on the other side of the river doing what they do, or think what they think, or write what they write, or say what they say, or publish what they publish. And try to be fair with them, because sometimes maybe they are right, or maybe they are right to some extent. It doesn't mean that we will be correct all the time. People who oppose us may actually be more right than we are, and a true leader should be able to read what the opponents say, express it in the most powerful way possible. So present the arguments of the opponents in even stronger terms than they do, and then think, do I have something to do with this? Can I oppose this meaningfully with evidence, with data, with very careful thinking? Or maybe there's some elements that they're right. And then maybe you achieve a broader synthesis. Maybe instead of leading a fraction, maybe you lead a broader community that integrates the two opposing communities. And they recognize that, well, look at that. Shin was such a wise person that he was willing to accommodate these opposing views and reach a synthesis that goes beyond what each of the two fractions was thinking about. So a leader should be not compromising, but integrating, and being able to get people to understand each other, and eventually admit, I was wrong about this, we can do that better, we can go in that direction that would serve a larger community and a larger goal.
If I see your achievement of the international first leading expert in meta research, and also that lead to the launch of Meta Research Innovation Center at Stanford, 2014. So when I look at your achievement, you have the guiding light with ordinary thinking and extraordinary thinking. And also you have the many collaborative network and environment that kind might lead to the synergy of that. So 3 weeks ago, I had also given a leadership lecture on the power of collaboration. So could you explain more as a leader, first leading expert leader in the world? So could you explain more on collaboration and how we can do kind of things? Recommendation.
Collaboration is offering great opportunities. So I think of collaboration of two different types, and sometimes they may coexist. One type of collaboration is to try to get more people who do the same work and pose the same questions and collect the same type of data, and they have the same goal, instead of having fragmented efforts, each one of them trying to outperform the others, join forces and do something that would be much bigger than the pieces that it is composed of. That would be more rigorous, would be more powerful, would be more reliable, would be more transparent, would be cross-checked across all these teams, would be more applicable because replication would be incorporated as a fundamental aspect of the collaboration. And I've seen that be applied successfully in many fields that were fragmented into small teams doing their little glitch here and there and publishing papers that were completely irreproducible and most of the time false, even under good intentions, to very large coalitions. So I've seen it in many areas of epidemiology. I led some of the early efforts to create consortia of epidemiologists working on specific questions where almost everything that we were publishing before joining forces was wrong. And you would anticipate it to be wrong because the odds were amazingly tough for a single team with small sample size, a small set, to get any reliable answer. You know, if you just put down the math, it would show that what are you doing here? You know, this is a recipe for failure. Conversely, getting all these people to agree, we will all do it together, we will share our data sets, we will all follow some rules that we have accepted, we'll use better statistics, we'll have more transparency, we'll do replication, we'll use better methods, we will cross-check each other's work, we will have standards that are better. The fields that applied that, so a massive improvement. In the early days, that was not easy to do. I remember some of the early efforts that I tried to create large consortia and collaborations in epidemiology in the 1990s. People, you know, I was still in my young phase of my career, you know, this young crazy professor versus some very senior people who were used to publishing in top journals, but they had started suspecting, goodness, everything that we publish is wrong. We need to do it differently. But it was so difficult to convince them, and some of the early efforts, I really met with situations that I was not prepared, like you know, getting years of discussion to get people to get on board and join forces, and then get a result that was not what some powerful professors wanted to see. And then these people saying, oh, you got it wrong. But you all agreed that we will do it this way. No. Do it from scratch. And then, you know, waste more time to do it from scratch, the way that they wanted to do it, and again getting the same result. No, it cannot be. We withdraw our data. We're not part of this, because that's what they had built their career on, and then redo it again from scratch and publish it. Or other collaborations where the powerful senior people were expecting to see more publications in top journals. And goodness, many of these collaborations in the early days, they were just getting negative results because that's what it was. People had found signals here and there, but once you got the full picture, very well done, very rigorously, it was all negative. So then they were looking at it, oh, that's negative, it's not going to be publishable. And I was very happy to see some of the top journals recognizing, well, this is the way we need to move, and publishing that work even though it was completely negative, because they realized, goodness, you know, here's one way to get to the truth, quote unquote. It is negative, but that's what it is. Are we going to accept a better, more rigorous effort, or just continue just publishing little bits and pieces that are irreproducible? So, I mean, now I think this is the norm in many fields. They join forces, they share data, you have these large consortia and collaborations as a default. The second type of collaboration, which I think is equally interesting and perhaps even more interesting, is collaboration between teams that don't work on the same topic, don't use the same methods. They come from very different walks of life. And sometimes, or most of the time, they don't even speak the same language. They may be studying methodologically some similar phenomena. Not the subject matter. The subject matter may be, one team may be studying astrophysics, and the other may be studying genetics, and the third may be studying, microbiota. the language that they use for some common features, like how do we share data? They may be doing the same thing, sharing data or not sharing data, but they may be using a completely different terminology. So it's a little bit like moving into a room and one team is speaking Korean, the other is speaking Greek, and the third is speaking English, and no one can understand all three languages. And then you start going into that translation. This is what I mean. Let's bring our statisticians together. Let's brainstorm. And getting these fields to converge is really a fascinating experience. I think that you realize that much like it happens in human languages, sometimes there's better terms about some concepts in one language versus another. There's some elements that exist only in one language rather than another. There's others that there's commonality and you just need to cross-link. So getting very different scientists to sit in the same table, to be part of brainstorming on the same protocol, think about what can we do together is really a very rewarding experience. And I do that whenever I can, even though you have to be ready to meet with a lot of frustration, because very often people have a hard time even to start on the basics. I think we need more on that, because that's really the recipe that leads to disruption. If you can connect disciplines that are very far apart from each other, it's like connecting civilizations that are in different galaxies, then that's the maximum benefit that you can get. In my experience, that's the best recipe for doing fascinating, disruptive science, but it's more difficult. It does take a lot of persistence.
Oh, it reminds me the launching of our Severance on the Root Meta Research Center in our university, because our Yonsei University encouraged the convergence of science. So there is Institute of Convergent Science. There are many centers for encouraging the convergence of science. Regarding our Severance on the Root Meta Research Center, I also thought that the collaborations with the philosophy professor from Underwood International College, Bennett Pullman, because the research itself might be somewhat focused on the epistemology of the science like that. So I just wanted to know how the philosophers think about the research itself, and so launching this kind of meta research center. So yeah, I like this kind of convergence too. And so here there are many Yonsei University students, and so these freely thinking ideas will broaden our understanding the other fields, and so it will be very impactful in your life. Okay, so
I think we had a question here, no?
Thank you for your amazing lecture. My name is Yoon Cho, majoring in Library and Information Science. So my question is about your life. So we know that you are Greek and have ping pong between Europe and US, right? So could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and life?
Goodness. Yes, I've written 10 books about it. I think that I'm kind of a hybrid type of phenotype, and that is both good and bad. I think that I belong to different spheres of cultural background. There's lots of things that I enjoy that have an American root, and others that have a European and Greek root. And at the same time, there's that Greek word which we call nostalgia. Nostalgia is two words actually. Nostos, which goes back to Odysseus, Ulysses, and the Odyssey. It's the epic of his nostos, his return back home. Poor man fighting for 10 years under the walls of Troy, and then another 10 years lost at sea with Neptune, Poseidon after him because he hated him, trying to get back to his home, his little island. So Nostos is the journey back home, and algia, algos, analgesic. Analgesic is what stops the pain. So algos is pain. So it's some sort of pain in the journey to return. So for me, I think that I have a lot of nostalgia in me, but I'm not sure where exactly I want to return because I'm used to living in different places. I'm used to having a home in different continents, to feel at home in different continents, also to feel a foreigner in some ways in different places. There's another Greek word, cosmopolitan, again made of two words, cosmos, which is the world, and in fact the original meaning is a jewel, because our world is beautiful, is like a jewel. If you think of the world, it's so rich in beauty and such marvel, both for a scientist and for an artist and for any human being to really marvel about our world. So cosmos and politan is polis. Polis is the city, and you're a citizen of the world. I think we're all citizens of the world, and I try to remind myself, next to nothing, that I'm a citizen of the world. These days I'm in Korea. I had amazing hosts really taking me to majestic places and learning about Korean culture and history and traditions, realizing again how little I know, next to nothing, and trying to enjoy that, trying to respect that, trying to grow out of it. Do I want to go back? Yes, but where? It's like an eternal return in a way. I think we all want to go back to what is home, but this has no end, probably.
Thank you.
Oh, I think that was great closing comment. And I'm afraid to say that our time is up already, yes. So I again thanks Dr. Ioannidis for your insights. Also thanks Sashi, and also thank you everyone at IGEE and Leadership Center for making this event possible. And lastly, thank you all for being here, and I hope you to leave with excitement and inspiration. Thank you everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.